Welcome back to another episode of Dueker Sports. I am Dylan Dueker, and I'm joined, as always, by Christian Lunday. And we are breaking down the divisional round matchups that just happened over this past weekend. And then we're going to preview the conference championships. We have one more week of real football left before the Super Bowl. I'm excited. Both of our favorite teams are still in it. So it's a good time to be a host on Dueker Sports. And we're gonna break it down for you. So, the first thing we wanted to talk about during today's show was our favorite moment from this past weekend in the games. I'll let Christian go ahead and go first.
Yeah, I'm a little bit biased. My favorite moment in the game was Patrick Mahomes goes out, gets some X-rays done on his ankle. Chad Henne comes in, has a 98 yards to go for a touchdown. Get a little bit past half field, and then Isaiah Pacheco goes off for a 39-yard scamper that looks like a dead play at first, but he turns and churns and burns his legs and accelerates for a 39-yard physical run. And I just feel like that set the tone. Like, okay, Pat's out. We can still make a play. We can still win this thing. And that was by far my favorite moment of the weekend.
Yeah, I'm actually going to mention that drive later on in the show when we're recapping that game. But that was a great moment. And my favorite moment of this weekend was the Dallas Cowboys final play. No, I'm just kidding. That was pretty great. It was hilarious. The Cowboys love to end their season in the most embarrassing way possible. They succeeded again. So
They
shout
did.
out to them. They met their goal. They exceeded it, in fact. My actual favorite moment was the Eagles' opening drive. So this is my favorite moment because, first of all, Jalen Hurts goes 5 for 5. I have it actually written down right here. Yeah, Hurts was 5 for 5 on the drive. They second play of the game, 40-yard pass to Devontae Smith. And
Yes.
the drive was 8 plays. They went 75 yards. It took 4 minutes and 54 seconds. They scored a touchdown. They set the tone right off the bat. At that moment, I knew, I don't know, I just had a feeling the Eagles are going to win this game. They had a perfect first drive, for perfect opening drive, and it really did. I think it set the tone. It let the Giants know you're not going to win this game. I think it hurt their confidence. It boosted ours, and that game was over from that point. We held them to 7. So at
Yes.
that
Yep.
point, I think even if that was our only touchdown, we're going to overtime. So, but we go on to score 38. So that was my favorite moment from this past weekend. In our next segment, what we're going to be doing is we're going to go back and we're going to talk about briefly each game that was played this past weekend, and we're going to give you like a few key takeaways from each game. So the first game we're going to be discussing is the Jaguars versus the Chiefs, and I'll go first on this one, and I'll mention what I said I was going to mention right off the bat. So to me, the key moment of this game was when Patrick Mahomes went down. First of all, I thought, this could be the end of the game right here. I didn't think they would be able to hold off the Jaguars, which had Henne at quarterback. So I didn't, as I'm not a Chiefs fan, but I was thinking in my mind, I'm like, if Chad Henne goes the rest of the way in this game, I do think the Jaguars win. However, Chad Henne comes in, he plays extremely well. They go down the field. This is crazy. 98 yards. They went 98 yards with Chad Henne at quarterback. And now I will say, as you mentioned, Pacheco was the player of that drive. He had that huge run. He had several other runs along the way to get him down the field. But Henne went 5 for 7, which is fantastic, albeit for only 23 yards, which is not that great. But he was efficient. And he threw a touchdown pass to end that drive. But yeah, 98-yard drive. So then went the full length of the field. It took, I guess I didn't write down how long it took, but I think it took a lot of the quarter up, and it gave them momentum. They would end up getting a stop on defense, and then they would just take it into halftime after that. But to me, that was a key moment of the game. I think Patrick Mahomes, playing through an injury, made this game even that much more impressive. Christian's making a face. I sometimes think that players are slightly exaggerating injuries in game. to boost their legacy. I'm not saying that Mahomes wasn't injured. I don't know. But I think there's at least a small probability. I wasn't going to talk about it, but he smiled and I had to address it. So I think that maybe I think maybe he wanted to boost his legacy a little bit. He wanted a Jordan flu game. He wants the Mahomes one-legged game. But I do think that he was obviously injured in that game. But I think the fact that he played through it and was able to come out on top and go to their 5th consecutive AFC championship, that's insane. Andy Reid, he's got to be in the Hall of Fame immediately when he retires. Forget the waiting period. Put him in because
Agreed.
this guy, I can't remember I forget how many times he's like the first coach ever to lead two
Two
teams
teams to 10 plus wins in the playoffs.
Yep. And then look how many conference championships. Because I think he went to 3 with the Eagles, if I'm not mistaken. And now he's gone to 5 in a row with Kansas City. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah. I want everyone to know I peaked in high school because I played my entire senior year in soccer with a fractured bone in my foot. And one thing that was mentioned was I don't understand how Mahomes sometimes is limping, but sometimes looks okay. And I'm like, dude, for me, I popped in some Tylenol, took off a boot, put on my cleat. Sometimes I could drive off my foot and be fine. Sometimes I refractured my toe, my big toe. So it's like sometimes you just can, sometimes you can't. But I still got all district honors. But Mahomes is certainly all pro, even on one leg. It's definitely possible. I don't think he exaggerated at all with the high ankle sprain, but spicy takes, hot takes. Paul Pierce comes to mind when Dylan mentions players that fake injuries for legacy games.
Sometimes you got to go when you got to go. Okay? Lamar
Sometimes.
Jackson did it. Lamar Jackson did it. Paul Pierce did it. Paul Pierce, who kicked off ESPN, we would welcome him as a guest host
Yeah.
for at least one episode here on Dueker Sports.
Or
Let's
multiple.
keep
We
the
never know.
let's keep the Facebook Live action down to a minimum, though.
Yeah. So I got this book full of notes that I took. It's not completely full of notes, but when I watched the game, I was like, I'm going to talk about these. And the Chiefs are my team, so I'm going to spend a little bit more note taking there than the other teams. But I feel like the defense played outstanding this game. I feel like they took the challenge upon themselves with Trevor Lawrence coming back against their opponents last week and playing a heck of a second half. I think the special teams made clutch plays this game. Harrison Butker with the 250-plus yard field goals and the tackle that basically saves a special teams touchdown for the Jaguars. That was incredibly clutch. I think Tommy Townsend shows you why he's a Pro Bowl punter this year. The O-line played poorly in the first half. Orlando Brown Jr. wants a huge contract, and he gets beat too many times. Mahomes gets hurt. Second half, that entire offensive line played phenomenally. So they elevated their game when they knew their guy was hurt. Jerick McKinnon, he destroyed the leading tackler in the NFL on a pass blocking snap. And Jack Wires should be familiar with this because there's a little man named Maurice Jones-Drew who knocked the crap out of Sean Merriman against the Chargers in a game on a pass blocking snap. That's what that reminded me of. And I said on Facebook, I was like, if Orlando Brown just blocked like Jerick McKinnon, he'd have a contract yesterday. So I want to give that a shout out because that's how you get yourself on a field. If you're a young player right now trying to get some snaps on a field, pass block like that. You will find snaps on the field. I think Mahomes and Kelsey with 14 catches this game, one shy of the record. Just a phenomenal dude. The guy shows up every week. I think Mahomes played outstanding, especially when, he needed to scramble for a first down. He had to basically hop to get there. Or in Dylan's case, make himself look like he's hopping and hurting, and then fall down on the ground to get the first down. I think that was clutch. There's 2 jump passes that he made that game, one of them to MVS for a touchdown. That was sorely needed. If we don't do that, we don't go up by 2 scores, there's a strong probability Jacksonville could have won. And I think, Justin Reed, I think he needs to step up. He's not really impressed me when it comes to tackling. He's missed way too many tackles this season that reared its ugly head. I know you're dealing with, Travis Etienne, who's a really versatile and elusive back, but you still got to wrap up. You got paid a nice contract this year. You need to prove why you did it, why you got that contract. Chris Jones led with 6 pressures. I know everyone's talking about no sacks, but the guy led the NFL in pass rush win rate and pressures. I think he led the NFL in pressures too. So I'm like, the dude still is disruptive despite not getting a sack. I think the sacks will come. The rest of the playmakers, Kadarius Toney, very physical. I think he played a heck of a game. Wide receivers, they got open when they needed to. And I'm pretty happy with the effort when Patrick went out and Chad Henne. Anything is possible on any given day. You saw it right there, folks. So I was happy with the performance this weekend.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think, playing with a banged up quarterback in a playoff game, the Jaguars may not be the toughest team in the league, but they were one of the hottest teams coming into this game. So I like that. Anything is possible. Kevin Garnett once said that.
Sort of.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what he meant to say.
Yeah, that's what he meant.
Yeah, I agree. Chad Henne coming in, leading them on that touchdown drive. The team rallying around him during that brief moment where he came into play. The team rallying around Patrick Mahomes. A lot of Mahomes' game is based off the fact that he is mobile. He can get out of the pocket. That's like what he's famous for. So being able to win a game where he's forced to remain in the pocket the entire game. I don't think the Chiefs offense looked as prolific with him stuck in the pocket, but he was able to get the job done. He did make a couple jump throws. The final one, to me, being one of the most impressive plays of the game. So yeah, I think I'm excited for the Chiefs to be back in the AFC Championship. I think it's going to be one heck of a game. We're going to talk about it in a little bit, but we're going to move on to our next game now. And we are discussing my favorite team. So I didn't take as many notes as Christian did, but let me break this down for you. So I already mentioned it. So right off the bat, I think the Eagles set the tone. And then I want to give a shout out to Nick Sirianni. Nick, I know you're listening. And I know you listened last week because I said run the ball. And we ran the ball. And we won the game. And this is what happens when we run the ball. We ran the ball 44 times. We had 268 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. We averaged 6.1 yards per carry. When the Eagles run the ball, they win games. And they don't just win them, they blow teams out. And that's exactly what happened in this game. That's exactly what I wanted the team to do. I mentioned it. I say this every game because I think the Eagles are a team built to run the ball. When they start running the ball well, then it makes their passing game that much better. And then you have the big plays like they had to Devontae Smith, a couple to A.J. Brown. That being said, obviously Devontae Smith, second play of the game. But they ran it the play before. So I'm going to give them credit. It may have only been 2 yards, but you run the ball to set up the pass. That's what the Eagles did in this game. And Jalen Hurts, despite them running all over the place, Jalen Hurts was still very impactful in the passing game as well. He finished with 112.2 quarterback rating. He had a rushing touchdown, but he had 2 passing touchdowns as well. And he threw for, I guess I don't have that written down. Just kidding. But I think the Eagles played extremely well on both sides of the ball because they also controlled the line of scrimmage on defense, which is why the Giants were only able to score 7. The Eagles pass rush did it again. They got 5 sacks in this game. They had 4 additional tackle for a loss in this game. And that's what the Eagles do. They had 70 sacks in the regular season. I think that's third best all time. They're the first team ever to have 4 players with 10-plus sacks, and they got it done again in this game. They forced Daniel Jones to be uncomfortable the whole game. You started seeing him make some mistakes, which is exactly what he did not do last week in order for them to win. And then on the offensive side of the line of scrimmage, the Eagles controlled it as well. They only gave up 1 sack to the Giants, and that's what we do. I think the Eagles, the reason why they have the most NFC Championship appearances since the year 2000 is they always have a great offensive line. They've done this for years. And so they continue to do that here. And that's why they're finding themselves back in the NFC Championship once again. They protect the quarterback. They control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, and they run the ball extremely well. So they control time of possession, and then they force teams into mistakes because you don't get that many opportunities, and when you do, you're running for your life. So I think the Eagles played one heck of a game, and I am thrilled. I think we're going to be very blessed. I actually didn't think this weekend was as good as I had hoped in terms of competitiveness in some of these games. I'm a huge Eagles fan, so obviously I like the blowout here, but I think these games, these conference championship games, are going to be an absolute treat. Especially
Yeah.
the Bills. I mean, I keep saying the Bills. I thought they were going to win. I'm sorry. I really thought they were going to win. The Chiefs and the Bengals. I think that game could be the game of the year.
Yeah, I'm right with you about this coming up weekend, but also about the Giants game. My notes talk about how well they ran the football. They honestly, this whole most of this season, I think I've had the 49ers as the number one team in the NFL with the Chiefs right behind them. But last week, the Eagles looked like the scariest, most complete, most dominant team left in the playoffs. That was an absolute clinic, utter destruction of the Giants. I think the Giants maxed out their talent, especially having little to no weapons, and them not feeding Saquon Barkley enough. I thought Saquon Barkley needed more touches either in the run game or out in space in the passing game. They didn't do that as much as I thought they should. And you can only go so far with this Giant squad and this roster. And they were just outclassed right from the beginning, opening drive, just like you talked about. The Eagles just ran roughshod over this Giants defense. AJ Brown had a nice over the shoulder touchdown catch, I think, where he just basically burned his corners to a crisp. And it's like you just look at this team: Devontae Smith, uh, AJ Brown. You got Miles Sanders getting in there. Jalen Hurts looks like he's totally healthy. This whole team is firing on all cylinders, especially starting fading down the stretch of the regular season, which I think was one, boredom, and two, let's preserve ourselves because we know Jalen's coming back and we'll put our full bodies on the line in the playoffs. I'm not worried about this squad. I think the Eagles probably took the cake as the best team in the NFL after last weekend. And I think every team is looking at them like their defense is dominant, their run game is dominant, their passing game is dominant. They got players all over the field. I think it makes teams squirm and lose sleep at night. And I think the Philadelphia Eagles sleep well at night because I think they know inside themselves that they are the most complete, most dominant, most physical, just most top to bottom best team in football to them. So I think that's just going to help them moving forward. And yeah, I'm excited for this week's game, Eagles 49ers.
Yeah, I made a comment about 8 months ago on Dueker Sports talking about Joe Burrow being the next Tom Brady and talking about him winning MVP this year. I don't think he's going to win MVP, but I think that you look at him and what the Bengals are doing, I think that we have the top four teams in the league. Because when you're
Yep.
mentioning the Eagles and how they're able to do anything they want to do on offense, I kind of see that with the Bengals. I think you on the AFC you have the two best quarterbacks in the league, and on the NFC I think you have the two best teams in the league. And I think these are the four teams that need to be here. I think they're the four best teams in the league. I cannot wait. Like I'm literally I hate that it's Monday, not just because I had to wake up early, but because it's not the weekend and I'm not watching conference championship football. We're gonna move on and we're gonna talk about those Bengals. Joe Burrow is ice cold. He is sensational. To start this game, he was 9 for 9, 105 yards and 2 touchdowns on the two opening drives. Then the Bengals defense, which is what surprised me even more, they forced back-to-back 3-and-outs to open this game, and it was 14-0 right off the bat. And then I don't know, all-around domination in this game. I think that the Bengals offense fell a little bit flat at times, but they're missing 3 offensive linemen in this game, and they only gave up 1 sack to a Buffalo Bills defense that many consider to be one of the best in the league. And then the Bengals defense shut down everything the Bills tried to do. They couldn't throw the ball. They had one receiver with more than 40 yards, and it was Dawson Knox. They couldn't run the ball. They never can. That's one of their biggest issues. They contained Josh Allen. They held him in the pocket, and his foot wasn't even hurt. He was just held in the pocket. The Bengals defense played sensational. They held him to 10 points. He threw another interception, which that's a much needed improvement over throwing two and fumbling it 3 times a week before. He had 0 fumbles in this game, but he threw that interception. The Bengals held on to the ball. They dominated the run game. They obviously dominated the passing game. And then their defense just shut down everything the Bills tried to do. I am shocked by the outcome of this game. I thought for sure the Bills would win this game whenever the Bengals lost their third offensive lineman going into it. But the Bengals dominated, and you sent me a text, and I've been talking about it all day. I will say this about the Bengals. I'm kind of getting annoyed by them because they are being quite arrogant right now. They've had a lot of success lately, but they haven't won a Super Bowl still. And the arrogance or the cockiness that I think that they showed in this game, and I'm sure will continue to show in the days leading up to this rematch against the Kansas City Chiefs. I understand part of it because everyone had ruled them out. So I get they had a chip on the shoulder. I also thought they were going to lose. I think most people expect them to lose this game. They dominated it instead. So I understand having the chip on your shoulder. These Joe Burrow interviews that I've been watching, though, after these games, I don't know if he's just uncomfortable being on camera, and that's why he's coming across the way that he is, but he kind of is coming across as a tool, and I don't like it. That was the cleanest thing I could have said. I thought about saying many others. And I'm a Joe Burrow guy. Like, I think Joe Burrow is sensational. I continue to say he is the next Tom Brady, and I'm still saying he's the next Tom Brady. I'm saying it for almost a year now, and he's in the AFC Championship again, and back-to-back years. And it'll be very interesting to see how this game plays out against the Chiefs. But what an incredible job! I think the best performance to me this weekend, I actually would give it to the Bengals. I think that what they did to the Bills is even more impressive than what the Eagles did to the Giants, and that was extremely impressive.
Yeah, I hear you. I think the best thing Joe Burrow said was send those refund checks. I thought that was hilarious and kind of a stick it to Roger Goodell and the rest of the NFL league office. That made me laugh really hard. But you know, the Bills are a different defense without Von Miller. If Von Miller had been there, I feel like he would have eaten up that offensive line or at least caused problems and disruption. I think Tre'Davious White had probably the worst game I've ever seen him play. Part of that is because it's in the snow, and I think the coaching matters. And I think when the snow is this bad, it makes the field slippery. The best thing to do is take the possession first because you get out to a fast start. Your wide receivers know where they're going, but the corners don't know where the wide receivers are going, which means you can create space and get up to a quick lead if you have a good 15 scripted plays. I think in a game like this with the conditions how they were, I think Bill's first mistake was not taking the ball first. I think you're right. I think Joe Burrow is the second best quarterback in football. I think that he's just the way he plays the position, very much like Tom Brady. Tom Brady and Kurt Warner had a knack for getting the ball out very quickly, under 2.5 seconds, sometimes under 2 seconds. And Joe Burrow is like, I know my line is not great. I'm going to get the ball out in 2 seconds or less. And I think that has worked wonders. It certainly helps when you have two number one wide receivers and Tyler Boyd, who's a very, very, very good slot wide receiver. I think those weapons certainly propel your greatness at quarterback, but I'm not taking anything from Joe Burrow because he wanted his guys. He wanted Jamar Chase there. He got him. He knew exactly what they were capable of together, and it shows. You destroyed a Bills defense that was healthy outside of Von Miller, and you beat up their secondary. Jordan Poyer was back, didn't look 100% healthy to me, but he was still out there playing. And if you're going to be out there and play, the expectation around the league is that if you're playing, there's no excuses. My notes here. Bengals rushed 3 linemen most of the game, and they got home. The Bills' offensive line played worse than the Chiefs' offensive line last week, and the Chiefs' offensive line was dealing with a hampered quarterback. Josh Allen was completely fine. Josh Allen played the worst game of his career. To me, especially in the playoffs, I know that they've been worse, but the stakes are higher this game. And when you, in the previous years, you've taken steps back further from the Super Bowl, especially from your expectations, and Josh Allen's had a turnover problem all year this year. It just continues. I'm not impressed with the Bills' offensive line. I'm not impressed with Josh Allen this game. I think the Bengals secondary has some holes, but I think they outplayed their actual talent because I don't know, was Zach Taylor, and I don't know what they they were thinking before the game, but for some reason they felt disrespected and came out and completely outclassed the Bills wide receiving core. Um, Someone on that pops off the screen every time I watch him play, and I think Tony Romo mentioned this. Um, Matt Milano made some huge plays for the Bills. Every time I've seen him play, there's a reason he's an All-Pro. He made some absolute stud plays and was the bright spot on the Bills, the entire Bills team. Everyone else I felt like was pretty frustrated, was pretty flustered, and Matt Milano's like, "This is a normal day at the office for me." So I think that the Bills, they'll be back. Josh Allen's too good. This team's too good. I don't know what Stephon Diggs is going through after the game, but this team is too good to put out a performance like they did this past weekend. I think they're disgusted with themselves. There's only so much losing you can take before you lose the war of attrition and don't come back at all. And I don't think they're there.
So I need to read my notes more often because I went off script and you hit on two things that I had written down that I thought were huge. Number one was Von Miller. I could not agree more. They needed Von Miller in this game. With him, this game could have been completely different. Without him, we saw what happened. They couldn't get any pressure in this game. And then you talked about Matt Milano, and I have it written down. A shout out to him because he did everything. I wrote down his stats in this game. He had, let's see if I can find it. There it is, 10 tackles, 1 sack, 2 tackles for a loss, 1 pass deflection, and a quarterback hit. He was everywhere. He did everything for this defense. It wasn't enough. And I agree with you. Also, I mentioned it last week. We're talking about Josh Allen and his turnovers. And it's the reason why I thought the Chiefs were going to go to the Super Bowl these last couple of weeks is because I thought the Bills were playing too sloppy football on offense. And we taught a lot of heat is going towards Dak Prescott and his turnover issues. I feel like Josh Allen deserves just as many. This is why I continue to put Justin Herbert ahead of him in quarterbacks that I'd want for my team right now. I still think if I'm building a franchise, I go Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, then Justin Herbert as my quarterbacks if I had to pick. Josh Allen, you said it was the worst game of his career, and you back that up by saying because the stakes were higher, which helps it. He sometimes looked just plain awful in his rookie season and in his second season. So I don't know if it was the worst
to the ground, tossing it behind his head play. Yeah. That one I'll never. That one was way too bad to get out of your memory.
I understand what you're trying to say here, and I love the hot takes. I love that. That's what Dueker Sports does. I disagree, but I don't think he played well. I think he played extremely poor. I think their biggest issue outside of him turning the ball over is lack of offensive weapons. They have Stephon Diggs.
Yeah.
I don't care about big game Gabe. I don't care.
He made that one catch. Where did he go after that?
Yeah. I don't trust him. I can't even remember the guy's name that was second on the team in receiving yards because I don't even know who he is, but he's had a couple of big games in the playoffs. But he's at the end of the day, he's not a great receiver. Dawson Knox is kind of like Gabriel Davis. He'll have a huge game and then he'll disappear. The lack of a run game has been killing this team for years. And I don't know. They just need a rehaul. I don't know if they even know who the best running back on this team is. I think it's Cook, personally.
Me too.
And I think that they need to feed him the ball more. I don't know. This team has a lot to figure out. I think this, I don't know what the repercussions are going to be on this roster for this game, but if I'm McDermott, I make big changes because this is unnecessary. There's no reason that you play and lose 27-10 at home in the playoffs against a team without three of their five starting offensive linemen. Unbelievable. And then to literally not, the Bengals defense has played a lot better. This is not even close to a top defense in the league, though. This is a very much in middle of the road defense. Absolutely shut them down. I understand that it was snowing. You're Buffalo. You play in Buffalo. All season you've been digging your cars out of the snow. If anyone's used to snow, it's Buffalo. I don't want to hear any excuses. The Bengals had the same issue. They scored 27.
See, when it comes to Josh Allen's rookie year, that's your rookie year, so you're going to have a ton of bad games, and you don't really know what's going on. The game hasn't slowed down for you. But Josh Allen, coming off his best playoff performance last year, comes to the playoffs this year at home at a home game in weather conditions that should be advantageous to you, although it gets really wild in Cincinnati. I know that for sure. But still, you're at home. Conditions should be favorable for you. I personally think Sean McDermott's a better coach than Zach Taylor, but I apparently was wrong. But in my opinion, you know the game has slowed down for you enough. People are calling you MVP last year. You turned the ball over, but people are still putting you up in the Mahomes category of the echelon of quarterbacks, and you come out and you score 10 points. You score 10 points at home. Unacceptable. I think he knows that. That's why I would say that was probably the worst performance of his career.
I think Stephon Diggs, what he's doing is actually going to be beneficial to the team. I think being pissed off about this game is good because they need to be pissed off. They need running backs. They need a secondary receiver. They need an improved offensive line. They need pass rushers because Von Miller is at the end of his career. He's at the twilight of his career. You can't rely on a guy like that to play an entire season and then to help you win playoff games. Unfortunately, he's one of the best pass rushers of all time. But you can't rely on a guy like that at that point in his career. You need to bring in other guys that will help you get the job done. Tremaine Edmonds played great as well, but Matt Milano is the leader of this defense. Get him some help. Get Stephon Diggs some help on offense, and you're going to have to retool completely. I don't know. I shouldn't have even put the Bills. I bought in that the Bills had the best overall team. I've never once said they were going to win the Super Bowl because I never believed they would. But at this point, I don't even know, like, if they play the Dallas Cowboys, I honestly wonder if the Dallas Cowboys aren't better than the Buffalo Bills right now. The Bills, just to me, they have a lot to think about this offseason because they are in that window. You talk about, they asked Joe Burrow what he thought his Super Bowl window was. He said, as long as I'm playing, it's the Super Bowl window. That's another hot Joe Burrow take. We need him on the show, I guess. But Josh Allen, your window's open right now. The team needs to give him better talent around him, and then he needs to make better decisions. That's, I think, what separates Patrick Mahomes from everybody. I continue to say this is Patrick Mahomes' best year. He doesn't have Tyreek Hill to throw the ball to down the field and just throw it up for grabs and let him go get it. He is making the best reads. He's taking what the defense gives him, and that's why I think that's the main reason why they stand a chance against the Bengals in this game. But we're going to move on to the final game from this past weekend, which was the Cowboys against the 49ers. And this was an interesting game to me. So, first of all, kudos to both teams' defenses because, my goodness, they played lights out, both of them. The loss for the Dallas Cowboys is not on that defense whatsoever. They made Brock Purdy look a lot more pedestrian. I almost said pedestrian. Pedestrian. No, they made him look not. I wouldn't say they made him look like Mr. Irrelevant because he still had like an 87 quarterback rating, threw for over 200 yards in a big time playoff game. But they had him running for his life. They shut down the run. They did everything they were supposed to do. The offense disappointed. Both defenses held the opposing run game to 3.5 yards a carry. That's big time, especially for the Dallas Cowboys because we all know how good San Francisco is at running the ball. I do think the Tony Pollard injury obviously benefited the 49ers significantly. The game was 6-6 at the time that he went down. They were driving, then Dak ended up throwing an interception. Go figure. So who knows what happens if Tony Pollard's in this game? But Zeke did not look good. And I don't think he's looked good for most of the season, in my opinion. And he's had games like that the past couple of seasons as well. Tony Pollard's got to be the guy going forward starting next year. And I do think that was a huge loss. You can't overstate the loss that Tony Pollard was in this game. They rely on him not only in the run game, but they also throw it to him out of the backfield quite often. So I think that had a huge impact on this game. And then something else I wanted to talk about was I already talked about a little bit was the pass rush. So Dallas was able to get 2 sacks, but they had 4 quarterback hits. The Niners got 1 sack. They had 4 quarterback hits. That was huge. Neither of these quarterbacks, I don't think they felt comfortable the whole game. I think both of them were extremely uncomfortable. They were having to run for their lives. I don't know how Dak Prescott did not get sacked for safety on that final drive.
Oh yeah.
Honestly, that would have been less embarrassing than how the drive actually ended.
Was
But that was pretty embarrassing.
who missed that tackle?
Yeah, he drilled them though, and I don't know how. But Dak's a big man, and I loved Dak Prescott in college when he played for Mississippi State, and that's why I loved him. Is he would take hits like that, and it's like nothing to him. He took an absolute shot from a defensive tackle who was massive, and the defensive tackle just kept going, and then Dak steps up and throws the ball away. He should never have been in that position anyways. You got to throw the ball away when you have a defensive tackle bearing down on you. That would have ended the game if the stupid play at the end didn't. And then another thing that I wanted to talk about. So we shouted out Matt Milano for playing a great game in a losing effort. CD Lamb is sensational.
Boomer.
He made that amazing grab. Honestly, could have even been pass interference, but the corner was all over him. Amazing grab. He kept Dallas in this game. He did everything. He was pretty much their entire offense. They did not run the ball well. He had almost over half of the team's receiving yards. He played extremely well. I think ultimately, though, what decided this game, and everyone's in agreement, Dak Prescott's turnovers. That's what decided the game. Offensively, both of these teams, statistics, almost identical, actually. The only difference is Brock Purdy didn't throw any interceptions. Dak threw 2. They were lethal. One of them was in the red zone. Again, he continues to do that. And I get it. The Niners are a great defense. And I continue to say, I'm honestly surprised the Cowboys made it this far because whenever they let Amari Cooper go in the offseason, I thought that was going to be one of them. I had it listed as one of the most detrimental moves in the league. I thought Robert Woods leaving the Rams and Amari Cooper leaving the Dallas Cowboys, I've been saying it all year. I thought those were the 2 most detrimental roster moves in the league. Amari Cooper, yeah, occasionally he might drop an open pass, but his route running is sensational. He forces a safety to at least give him attention, and he opens up the entire offense for everybody, for Dalton Schultz, for CeeDee Lamb, for the run game. He helps Dak Prescott. You have to go out and find another receiver if you're the Dallas Cowboys, especially if you want Dak Prescott to be your quarterback going into next season. And I think it's too early to make that move now. If you let Dak, if you bench him, or I don't think he would take a benching. So basically, you're going to have to trade him. I think a lot of teams would take Dak Prescott on their team because he's better than a lot of options. Will he ever win a Super Bowl? I don't know. But we keep talking about these teams that are losing and they need to retool. The Dallas Cowboys, they are close. They are extremely close. If they add another star wide receiver to this team, they're going to be tough to beat. And if they can once they start feeding Tony Pollard next year, look out. I think this team will be back next year. But embarrassing performance by Dallas Cowboys offense, embarrassing into the game. I don't know what in the world, it makes no sense. They throw the ball 8 yards. They needed 76. They had Zeke play center. What the heck? He got absolutely destroyed. It looked like a child playing in the NFL. He just got carried. And I don't even know. They basically launched him 5 yards backwards. It was worse. Jason Kelce had a one-armed pancake in this game against the Giants. It's less embarrassing for that defensive lineman to have to go through that than what happened to Zeke on that play. He got thrown like a rag doll. Then they throw it to Turpin, who got absolutely smoked. I don't know what the heck that was. I don't know what the Dallas Cowboys are ever thinking. They do this every year. This is why they have the reputation they have, whether it's running out of time in field goal range against the Niners a year ago, or it's whatever the heck that last play was this year. The Dallas Cowboys embarrassed themselves again, and we have to go through another offseason of them rebuilding and hearing this is our year. We'll see. I Until they quit embarrassing themselves to end a season, I'm going to continue to expect it.
Yeah, I'm gonna second everything, like everything that you said. Absolutely everything. I don't think it's too uncommon for us to agree on a bunch of stuff, but this is something in sports that we agree on 100%. The only two things I would add was Turpin gave you some juice, especially in the kickoff game. I don't know what he was thinking when he had a huge cutback lane. Instead of running into the kicker, you had some stuff to your left. You didn't use it, but whatever. That still gave the Cowboys some life. I'm also concerned about Christian McCaffrey's calf moving forward. They were doing some work on it. He was doing some stretches during the game, and they limited his touches. I think Elijah Mitchell is a perfectly capable back. He's a nice running back to have in your stable. But I'm concerned about Christian McCaffrey's calf just because of his versatility, the stress he puts on the defense, and his ability to break open the game. I would be very cautious about that moving forward. And yeah, everything else, Brock Purdy. Sometimes you have games where you just can't be Superman, but you manage the game and you don't turn the ball over. That takes poise. That takes some veteran leadership sometimes. But a rookie, Mr. Irrelevant, actually did that in the playoffs in the divisional round to send his team to the NFC Championship game. He didn't turn the ball over. He didn't make silly bad mistakes. He got rid of the football sometimes out of bounds when necessary. You just got to throw it away. And he didn't put his team in a position where they would be worse off. And that's something Dak, a veteran, someone who's got this big contract with the Cowboys, didn't do. And so that should tell you that should be the barometer of the Cowboys quarterback versus the league. My quarterback still makes mistakes that put my team at a disadvantage in a game where one turnover, this game is so close, one turnover can end your season for the rest of the year. So that's the only thing I would add, but everything else, 100% in agreement.
Absolutely. And now we're going to move on. We're going to be talking about the conference championship games for this upcoming weekend. And first off, it's going to be the Eagles hosting the 49ers. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the 49ers. So one thing that I found very interesting was the 49ers didn't even score a touchdown until the fourth quarter.
Wow.
It was 14 and 58. 14:58 remaining in the fourth quarter. Is the opening play of the fourth quarter. That's when they scored their first touchdown of the game. So I think going into this game against the Eagles, here's what I think is going to happen. You look at it, the Niners' second and run defense. That's critical, especially given how well the Eagles just ran the ball against the Giants. So the Eagles are fifth in run offense. They're also ninth in pass. Niners are second in run defense, so they're going to have to shut down the run. I think this is going to be a Jalen Hurts game. You have to play extremely well. You have to make good decisions if you're Jalen Hurts. You cannot turn the ball over against the 49ers. You absolutely cannot. I think that's one thing the Eagles do extremely well. They don't turn the ball over. The Dallas Cowboys do. It cost them severely in this game. I can't remember where they're definitely ranked in the bottom half of the league in giveaways this year, the Dallas Cowboys, whereas the Eagles, I believe, are fifth. They're the fifth fewest giveaways in the league this year. That's going to be pivotal. I do think the Eagles are going to win this game because of what I saw against the Cowboys out of the 49ers. You saw Brock Purdy getting a little bit uncomfortable. I think he made a lot of great decisions, but he also kind of looked pedestrian. The Dallas Cowboys kept their the offense in check the whole game, and the Eagles defense is actually better than the Dallas Cowboys defense in every single statistical category except for one, and that's points allowed. And the Dallas Cowboys gave up 20.1. The Eagles gave up 20.2. Other than that, the Eagles actually significantly better in every single aspect on defense than the Dallas Cowboys. So that being said, if the Eagles hold the 49ers to 19 the way the Dallas Cowboys did, I think we for sure win this game, because I do think that the Eagles offense is also significantly better than the Dallas offense. Jalen Hurts, you mentioned it earlier. You said he looks completely healthy. I'm going to disagree with you. He does not look completely healthy to me, and it's because of he hasn't been running the ball the same. Ever since he got hurt, he's been really reluctant. He hasn't been as aggressive. One thing that he does extremely well is he's a powerful runner. He can run through guys or he can run around them. He can put a good juke move. We've seen it multiple times. A guy just come out of his shoes because of a juke move by Jalen Hurts. He's been really conservative when he's ran the ball. He's looking to go out of bounds every single play, which is smart, but it's taken away a little bit of that weaponry on our offense. Before that had to be in your mind every single play. Jalen Hurts' ability to run the ball. Right now, it's in your mind, but you're not nearly as afraid of it as you were maybe 6 weeks ago. But I think the Eagles offense, I think they're going to be able to get a couple big plays in this game. The 49ers defense is extremely good, but so is the Eagles. I think this is going to be one heck of a matchup. If Jimmy Garoppolo was playing this game, I think they'd have more of a chance to win just because of his experience. He's been there before. And when you have an Eagles pass rush that has 70 sacks on the season coming after Brock Purdy, who's Mr. Irrelevant, I think that's going to be a huge key in this game. And he's going to have to make a lot of good decisions. The Eagles have the number one pass defense in the league, and they're going to probably force the Niners to run the ball a bunch. So it's critical for the Niners defense to keep the Eagles offense in check to open this game, because if the Eagles get out to a big lead the way they did against the Giants, it's going to be the same thing you saw last week. I promise you, if the Eagles come out and get the ball and they go down to score a touchdown the way they did in this past game, it's going to be game over, because you cannot rely on Brock Purdy going against his number one ranked pass defense, throwing it 40 plus times in this game. The Niners are going to have to establish this run. And the Eagles' run defense, I think, is ranked like 15th or 16th on the season. So that's a weakness, I guess, if you want to call it that. That's the one area that you could attack them in. But like I said, it's going to be pivotal for the Niners to get out to a fast start in this game. If they're able to shut down the Eagles' offense to start the game and get the run game established, then they'll win this game. That's going to be their key to victory. Eagles, just keep doing what you're doing. Come out like the Eagles on opening drives are fantastic. They script their plays as every other team does in the league, and they're pretty tough to beat when they do that. You have one of the top receiver duos in the league, and you have Dallas Goedert playing extremely well. As a tight end, you have the number one offensive line in the league. You have a great run game. They can kill you any way they want to. So you pick your poison as the Niners. You decide what you're going to let them do. If I'm them, I do the same thing that I would do if I'm the Eagles on the other side. You force Jalen Hurts to win the game with his arm. That's exactly what I would do if I'm the Eagles. So this is going to be one heck of a matchup. I think these are the two most complete teams in the National Football League. It could go either way. Sorry about that. Knocked over my light. I think they can go either way, but I do think the Eagles have to have the advantage in this game, not only because they're at home, not only because of the experience that this team has playing in big games like this, but because primarily their defense.
Yeah, so for the longest time, I've had Chiefs 49ers in the Super Bowl. I've had that up until this past weekend, where I watched the Eagles play the Giants and just obliterate them in all three phases of the game. So I actually have the Eagles winning by 3, 27-24. I think with a hampered Christian McCaffrey, Brock Purdy, who's kind of returning to earth, but still playing absolutely fantastically, I don't think the moment's going to be too big for him, but I think the Eagles are going to be his toughest test that he's ever faced in the NFL up to this point in his career. And it's a young career, which is obviously also working against him, because this Eagles defense is tenacious. Like you said, they have 3 guys with over 10 sacks on the season. When's the last time? Over 4 guys with over 10 sacks on the season. When have you ever seen that? That's insane. It's never happened. Yeah, it's never happened. And you're going to have a rookie quarterback who's the last pick in the draft starting for you going against that. I know that the offensive line for the 49ers is great. I know Trent Williams is probably the best left tackle in football. I don't think it's enough. I think the Eagles secondary too good, too talented, too good, can handle the size and the speed of Debo and Brandon Ayuk. I think the toughest test is going to be that zone run scheme against the Eagles defense, whether it's Christian McCaffrey or Elijah Mitchell. That's going to be the bread and butter for the 49ers, and they're going to have to lean on that heavily, I think, in order to win this game. And I think George Kittle is obviously going to be a mismatch on whoever he's up against, but I'm not sure that that's enough to overcome this talented Eagles defense. So I'm going with the Eagles 27, 49ers 24.
I agree with you 100%. I think TJ Edwards, though, may have been an all pro snub. He's one of the best linebackers in the league this year in coverage on tight ends. I think that's going to be pivotal because George Kittle is the receiver that's going to have the biggest mismatch. But yeah, I 100% agree with you. Niners are going to have to run the ball. So Eagles just need to get out to a fast start, and then I think that they'll have it won. But honestly, this game, whoever starts off winning the game, I think will win the game because these teams are built very much the same way. I think the Eagles have a little more talent on offense. I don't. The 49ers play an all around, maybe they're better in all around defense, I guess. But I think that the Eagles' secondary and their pass rush is what separates it. So I think if either team's going to turn the ball over, I'd say it'd be the 49ers and that young quarterback. But I think he's done a tremendous job of not doing that. But if the Cowboys had him running for his life, he's better get ready for it again. He's got his cardio workout, and he's going to need it because he's going to be running for his life again. And it'll be interesting. The Eagles' offensive line, if they can keep winning at the line of scrimmage, I think it'll be game over. Moving on to the second conference championship game to be played this weekend. Game of the year. I'm calling it right now. This is the game of the year. It is the two best quarterbacks in the National Football League, and they're probably going to be the two best quarterbacks in the league for a while. It doesn't hurt Joe Burrow that he has the best receiving core in football. You mentioned it earlier. One thing you didn't mention was Hayden Hurst. He played phenomenally well this past weekend. I think that's a huge addition for them. I thought not only did they boost their offensive line, they added Hayden Hurst, which is huge. We saw how good CJ Uzama looked last year. Hayden Hurst is even better. I think in this game, it took me a long time. We were setting up, getting ready for the show. I still didn't know who I thought was going to win this game. I don't think this game could be any more 50-50. I think the Bengals might be the better team coming in. The game's being played in Arrowhead, which is one of the loudest home venues in the National Football League. And if you don't think they're going to be extra motivated going against a Bengals team that's beaten them 3 times in a row, you are rudely mistaken. This crowd's going to be insane in this game. And I think it's going to come down to quarterback play. I am going to pick the Bengals in this game. I think that it's 27-24. That's what I think the final is going to be in this game. And I think if you're the Kansas City Chiefs, if you want to win this game, I think you're going to have to make it into a shootout. That's what I think you need to do. I think you get into a shootout, you put up some points. And it's funny because I'm a big advocate of running the ball. And I think the Chiefs have run the ball pretty decently well. And they did the first time they played the Bengals this year, which was in December. They ran the ball really well. However, in this game, I think you attack a Bengals secondary that has been known to give up big gains, blow coverage consistently, and their pass rush is mediocre. So I think you turn this into a shootout, and then for 2 reasons. The Eagles had 70 sacks this year. The number 2 team in the league had 55. That was the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think that way, if you're turning into a shootout, you can get Joe Burrow uncomfortable in the pocket. Bad news, I think Jonah Hill, I keep doing that. Jonah Williams, not the actor, Jonah Hill. He has nothing to do with this game. Jonah Williams might be back in this game. Alex Kappa might be back in this game. If they come back, I don't think the Chiefs will win. I think the way the Bengals played last week against the Bills, if they play like that, I don't think anybody can beat them. Quite frankly, anybody. So the Chiefs are going to have their hands full in this game. But I cannot wait to see. It's just sensational. The 2 best quarterbacks in the league. This is what you live for. It's a rematch. It's everything you could want. Both these teams are going to be heavily motivated. The Bengals fell short of winning the Super Bowl last year. They retooled. Their one goal was to get back. They started off slow. Everyone doubted them. I did not. I never dropped them out of below 11 in my standings, even though I think they were like 2-4 to start the season. Never dropped them below 11 because I'm like, give that offensive line some time to build chemistry. The Bengals are back. They played their best game of the year last week and the biggest game of the year on the road in Buffalo. They're going to face just as tough of an opponent, probably even better. And the home venue for the Chiefs is going to be even more rowdy. I don't know if it's going to snow or not. It doesn't matter. The Bengals showed they can play in the snow. Patrick Mahomes has shown that he can play in the snow. This is going to be a great game. Honestly, 27-24 might be shooting it low. It could be way higher. I would not be surprised if both these teams get into the 30s. I think this is going to be a legacy game for one of these quarterbacks. Whoever wins it, it's going to be big time. I think we're witnessing one of the probably the best quarterback rivalry in the National Football League right now. I don't think anyone's even close. I think that after what I just saw from Josh Allen in the season that Justin Herbert had, I think the gap from Mahomes and Burrow to the next guy is pretty significant. So I cannot wait. I'm just as excited about this game as I am about the Eagles game, and I freaking love the Eagles. But this matchup is going to be sensational. I want to check my notes in case you're going to steal any of my points coming up. But I think that was probably it. Yep. Definitely. I think that was all I had.
Well, I've got the Chiefs winning 30-24. I don't know if you know this, but Shannon Sharp had a high ankle sprain, shot it up twice a game, and played for 11 consecutive weeks while he was ailing and it was healing. And that's Shannon Sharp. He's a man amongst boys. There's also this cool guy in 2019 who got a high ankle sprain against the Jaguars and went on to win the next two games and throw for 400 yards in each of those games. His name is Patrick Mahomes. And that year they won the Super Bowl. I think that the same thing happens here. Andy Reid already said they don't believe that it was that as bad as it was in 2019. Arrowhead isn't one of the loudest stadiums. It is objectively and empirically the loudest stadium on the face of this planet. 142.2 decibels, and I think you're going to hear every one of them on Sunday night. I think that this year, with a fully healthy Bengals offensive line, if Travis Kelce doesn't fumble, the Chiefs win that football game earlier this year. And we're not talking about this 3-0 Bengals boogeyman ordeal. I think the Chiefs are perfectly capable of beating the Bengals. I think that the Chiefs' strength is, in my opinion, the Bengals' weakness. The Chiefs' strength is their passing attack, and they put up so many points. They're the highest scoring offense in the NFL. I think that the Bengals secondary, I think that they have outplayed their talent, basically. And I think that the wide receiving core, there's no way on God's green earth any day of the week would I pick Eli Apple over Kadarius Toney. Not a single day on this earth would I ever do that. I think if McCole Hardman comes back this week, that's another weapon that you've never seen. He didn't play against the Bengals earlier this year, so you've not seen him and Kadarius Toney on the same field at the same time, and that's pretty freaky and scary. That puts a huge amount of stress on the defense. Pacheco, this guy can run the football. Andy Reid needs to listen to me, all right? The same thing you were talking about last week with Nick Sirianni. I don't know if you know this, but Andy Reid's worse at abandoning the run. He's probably the worst coach I've ever seen when it comes to abandoning the run too early. There is a game that I went to years ago with a Hall of Fame worthy running back in the name of Jamal Charles. It was Chiefs versus Raiders. You know how many carries that I got paid to see? 4.
I guess
Jamal Charles got
I was
4
going to say
carries.
5.
You were close. He only got 4 carries. That's unacceptable. That's egregious. That is a sin of the highest order in football. You have to give Pacheco carries. You have to attack this defensive line for the Bengals. You have to go at them. The run blocking scheme is the best attribute of this offensive line. They are capable of moving people. So you cannot abandon the run. You have to establish the run. And with Patrick Mahomes having an injured ankle, it's more evident now that you need to establish the run, probably than perhaps ever, because of the stakes of this game, what's going on with your quarterback's leg, and who you have as bodies for your offensive line, all big, giant mammoths. Two of them are Pro Bowlers. One of them should have been an All-Pro last year, and Creed Humphrey. Arguably, it's arguable, but he's arguably the best center in football. He's had the highest PFF grade this year. This offensive line is built to move people, so you need to run the football. I think there's some mismatches here. Obviously, Travis Kelce's not guardable. That fumble was honestly a fluke. He had two hands on the ball. He just didn't get down fast enough, and the ball was out. I think that's fluky. I don't think that happens again. And then on the defensive side, we're looking at probably the weakness of the Kansas City Chiefs with young corners. But I think that earlier this season, they actually played the best game of all of their young careers against the Bengals. I think they actually did a fantastic job given their experience and who the personnel is on the other side. We're going to need that same effort, but better, more technically sound, better jams at the line of scrimmage, ruin their timing routes. I think Jalen Watson had a phenomenal pick this past weekend, one-handed, perfect trail technique. You can say that Zay Jones beat him. I think he lagged off on purpose because he knew Juan was coming to help, and it didn't matter because he's got Elastigirl arms where he just goes up and reaches 3,000 feet in the air, snag a football.
3,000.
He's an incredible athlete.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Yeah,
the relative athletic score matrix had him, the best athlete of all time, apparently, because of his range. But you have to have that effort. You have to have that smarts, and that's got to be consistent throughout the entire game. And if you're Chris Jones, you've been a very clutch defensive lineman. In the Super Bowl against the 49ers, you had two batted down passes that were absolutely clutch. And if that did not happen, we could have lost that game. This is a game where you need your first sack, your second sack, your third sack. We need you to disrupt Joe Burrow for the entirety of the game. You cannot let him get the ball out quickly because he's gonna dice us up. If you're the Bengals, you establish the run. Samaje Perine destroyed the Chiefs last time they played. He had over 100 total yards. He was an absolute mammoth bear to deal with. He's like two animals in one. And that he's a power back straightforward. Now you add Joe Mixon into the mix, back from injury. These two guys are powerful running backs with good speed and great size, and they play tough. So you have to wrap up and tackle. And if you're the Bengals, you need to just keep establishing the run because we couldn't stop it last game. Obviously, Jamar Chase, you got to keep producing like you have been for the majority of your career. You can't let this game go through. You've talked so much crap already. You've even done the $sign thing to Justin Reed after he opened his mouth. You got to keep up that production. But I think overall, I think the game plan for the Chiefs is well capable within their hands. I think overall their defense is better than the Bengals. I think their offense is empirically better than the Bengals. I think they have the best quarterback. I think they have the best coach. I think they have the best possible chance to win, even with the hampered Patrick Mahomes. So I'm going to stick with the Chiefs 30-24.
Yep. And I can see it going either way. I want an Eagles-Chiefs Super Bowl so bad. It's just too great. I'm from Missouri. As an Eagles fan, I have a rivalry with a ton of Chiefs fans there, so I think that would be fun. I think that Andy Reid going against his former team, that's exciting. I love Andy Reid. He's still my favorite coach in the league, even though he's coaching for the Chiefs. I think that they're two of the most exciting teams in football to watch. They also both have a Kelce on their team, and that's exciting. Most people I talk to, and I ask them who they want to play in the Super Bowl, they're telling me Eagles, Chiefs, and they want to see a Kelce Bowl. And I totally agree. I think talking about the Bills, if I say the Bills one more time, the Bengals versus the Chiefs game. I've been watching the John Wick movies recently, and just listening to you talk, I'm thinking they've got two assassins. They've got two John Wicks taking the field in this AFC Championship game. I can't wait to see which one comes out on top. The Bengals are talking a lot of smack right now, and if I've learned anything from watching the first two John Wick movies, it's to not make John Wick mad. So the Chiefs are angry. So maybe that's the difference in this game. But I do think this is going to be one of the best weekends of football ever, specifically this Chiefs versus Bengals game in Kansas City. I wish so much that I was able to go to this game. I wish that I could go to the Eagles game. I think both those stadiums are going to be rocking. I cannot wait to see what happens. And I really, really hope to see – I hope you're right about the Chiefs because I want to see Eagles versus Chiefs Super Bowl. That'd be exciting for both of us. and I think that it would be the best game. That's the game that I think would be the most exciting. The two of the most prolific offenses in the league this year. The guys who I fully expect to finish 1 and 2 in the MVP voting, going head to head. Cannot wait for football this weekend. That is the end of our episode for today. We will be back. We're hoping to be back on Wednesday. If not, we might be back on Friday. But stay tuned. Don't know what the topic's going to be yet, so we're going to be just as surprised as you guys are. I'm working on it right now, but it's going to be great. It always is here on Dueker Sports. Thank you, as always, for listening, and we hope to see you next time.